media is falling apart. As it crumbles, a void is opening, a void that we intend to fill. The big legacy news networks currently average just 1.2 million viewers a weeknight, and those numbers are only going to get lower. Legacy media is dying, and the younger generation has moved on. Legacy media panders. Legacy media lies. Legacy media does not know what the truth is, and they don't care about it. Legacy media is a dumpster fire. This is why we few in our wild imaginations have started the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Our goal is to take down the legacy media giant of the last 50 years with our 5 stones. We started in 2016 with our flagship show, Cross Politic. Since those small beginnings, we now air on DirecTV. Our broader podcast network now gets over 4 million downloads a year. And our Fight Laugh Feast pub, which includes TV shows like This America, The Rowdy Christian's Guide, Pastors in Politics, and As the Lord Pleases, with your support, many more to come. Our goal is to become the flagship new media 2.0 network over the next 50 years and take over nightly news, sports, sitcoms, hunting shows, and more, all conveniently stored for you in our Fight Laugh Feast pub. We're already reaching the next generation through our podcast shows on YouTube, X, and our pub, while also tapping into legacy media audiences by airing our shows on TV through DirecTV and Xfinity. We have made a lot of progress with some duct tape and a good bit of intuition and a lot of sweat. And now we need your support more than ever. The TV networks have had such a negative impact on our households, and we're trying, by the grace of God, to put a stop to that. We have the opportunity. We just need the army. Now more than ever, we need you to join our pub to help us reach our goal of 1 million pub supporters in the next 5 years. There's no way around it. Competing with Fox and the Alphabet networks without money is virtually impossible. It's cheap for you to join. And when you do, you're combining your small monthly support with a growing army of like-minded Christians. We have thousands, we need millions. So if you want more of the Alphabet network's misinformation and lies, don't join. But if you want to give us a mere 5 stones, then please join the pub, and together we will take a swing at the head of big media, all the while fighting, laughing, and feasting to the glory of God.
Here we go.
Yes, there we go. Hey y'all, welcome to WaterBreak Live. It's live, and it's good to be with you. Good to be with you, my wife,
and also with you.
And also with you. We have a date night tonight. So there you go. Just me and her, 5 o'clock.
Looking forward to it.
She likes to go to dinner early. I like to go later. You remember those old couples that would go to like Rudy's cafeteria or whatever?
Yeah.
And they'd be eating dinner at 4 o'clock. I never thought that would be me.
It's us now. Well,
it's us now.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I would eat at 4 if I could.
Yeah.
We compromise at 5. Product updates.
It's a massive compromise for me, but it's okay.
Oh man!
So
I got kicked out somehow.
I
can't see
the comments or something. Here, I'll play with it when you're talking and stuff.
See if you can get me back in.
Don't forget, I talk about this pretty much every show. Open up with this. We're going to be in Prodigal America at our Prodigal America conference in Fort Worth, Texas, October 31st through November 2nd. We also got just a bunch of other things going on, like a pre-business makers conference, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We have
Thanks, Bree.
some other luncheons happening, some other get-togethers. We do after party Thursday night. I mean, there's just all sorts of stuff going on. And more of that will be coming out in the schedule as we kind of get closer. But sign up now, join, sign up and support it. And if you're a business and you want to booth at the conference, the booth section is in the same room as the audience and the stage. So it's a very good, it's just a lot of fun and a good relationship with the audience that you guys get to have. And then if you want to be involved in like a larger corporate partnership with us in what we do, there's a bunch going on around that, year-round corporate partnership, stuff like that. We do a corporate partner event before the conference so we can get to know all our corporate partners. Just email me at waterboy@crosspolitic.com. WaterBreak, if your company wants to be involved in our corporate partnership. It's a good group of businesses and a lot of fun. So today we're going to talk about what I do for my workout. No.
It'll be a short show.
It'd be a very short show.
A short show.
You couldn't help it. You didn't know I was going to start that way. She had a little chuckle in there. So we're actually going to talk about what Annie does for kind of her weekly routine. And we get a lot of questions kind of around this. And so we thought we'd do a show. And of course, when we talk about what Annie does or what I do or what we do as a family and stuff, it's we're just, hopefully sharing some examples. And we know everybody's in a different life, different situation. And so, and then of course, also added to this, my wife's a professional.
Yeah.
And so
I do this for my job.
She does this for her job. And so, don't come in with like professional Annie expectations in your workout. But this is good stuff.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it. Yeah.
I assume you'd bring that up, but I just thought I'd also start off there and do that. So,
okay.
Okay. Am I so cute to you, or am I just funny to you? What is it?
So adorable that I can't sometimes
I can't help it.
Look directly at him.
Can't help it. So let's just start. Give me the bird's eye view of what you do for your workouts during the week.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say kind of to the point you just made. I actually, thanks, Bree. You're so smart. I can't even get inside of a chat room on my or stay inside. I think I got in there. Here we are.
Now you can see Michelle laughing.
Hi, Michelle. Hi, Michelle. I deserve it. Oh yeah. Okay. So I actually get kind of annoyed sometimes when fitness people get online or get on a podcast and they just start like waxing away about all the things they do. A lot of times I think it's like sounds so vain and like unrelatable to most people. Can you hear that?
Why don't you turn down?
I can hear my tiny self. There we go.
There's an echo.
I can hear tiny Annie in that little thing.
Yep.
Okay. Does that make sense? Like I'm like, wow, that's really helpful. So you just like eat oatmeal with gold sprinkled in it. And then you run, 10 miles a day. And then later that day you go to your personal gym that you have. And it's just like not helpful.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of times something that you could only do if you had a ton of money, 0 children, and probably either worked from home or independently wealthy, or maybe worked in the industry. I still have that echo.
I'm hearing it. Just keep going.
Okay. Yeah. But all that to say, I do get asked all the time, what do you do? What is your routine? And I think my routine is somewhat what's the right word? Relatable. I mean, to some degree, it might not be to some of you. Some of you might actually be surprised how little it is. And I've tried to kind of make it less as time has gone on over the years.
What's your phone?
Still the echo. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to not just talk about what do I do in a given week, but we can also talk about why. And I thought maybe some of those whys would be helpful for the audience. So anyways, bird's eye view. What does a normal week, a training week look like for me? From the top, and then we can kind of talk about each one of these things I do. And this is probably my biggest non-negotiable.
What about it?
Keep it off. Okay. Yeah. Tell me if anybody says something hilarious in there. I'm not meant to be in this chat room today, one way or another. I do 3 heavy strength training sessions per week. And I'm not saying non-negotiable, like I never miss them, but if I was going to get rid of anything, or if I had to compromise anywhere, it would not be on these. And Gabe knows that. Like I'll go out of my way on a Saturday to go into the gym, even if it's like just to hit a couple big lifts, because they're that important to me for injury prevention. So my back doesn't hurt. So I don't, you know what I mean? Like, but if I have to miss a run, I don't care. In fact, I kind of like it. But anyways,
yeah, I'm the same way.
Gabe's the same way. He's happy to.
If I have to miss a run,
he's been missing runs since I knew him. Just missing him. Anyways, yeah. So 3 heavy full body strength training sessions. I also right now am running on average 3 days a week. When we get to talking about that, I will give you a little more specifics why. I don't normally recommend that, honestly, for women, unless they are training for something specifically. But I'll get to it, and I'll get to what particular type of runs they are, because I think that matters. I do 1 Metcon. Metcon stands for metabolic conditioning. I guess you could call it, it'd be akin to a high intensity CrossFit workout, like a HIIT class, just where it's
like a boot camp,
100% cardio. It's just cardio. You might not be like doing a 5-mile run, but you're doing burpees, or you're rowing, or you're biking, or your heart rate's really, really high all the way through. So I only do 1 of those, even though those are my absolute favorite. Like
the Metcons.
Oh yeah. I mean, just like a really long, like grind of a workout. Like those are my favorite, but super stressful to the body. So I really have to limit that. And then I do what I call an injury prevention session. Injury prevention and I can get to the details of that. Usually for people that includes core, some mobility, maybe some glute work, some scaption, things like that. And I think if you're somebody who's beating your body up, on the road, in the gym, etc., you really need one of those. And it's usually not really a question of when you'll get injured or if you'll get injured. It's just a question of when, if you're not doing that. So we can talk about that when we get to it, but that's bird's eye. Okay. And like I said, to some people that might be like, oh my gosh, it's so much. Other people might be like, I do more than that, so it just depends.
So 3 heavy strength sessions, 3 runs, 1 Metcon, 1 injury prevention. So that's
what I'm doing right now.
Let's say are the heavy strength sessions, are they an hour long, half hour long?
I mean, the heavy, especially if you're going for strength, your rest periods are fairly long.
3 minutes kind of thing.
Yeah, like long. So at least between your working sets. So I would say of all of these things that I just listed, my strength training sessions are probably my most time consuming.
Okay.
But even them, I have kind of a minimum effective dose approach to those. So I only pick 3 or 4 movements, for example, and just focus on
so those. Whatever that ends up being, 30, 45.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, with warm up and everything, I usually, if I can, I like to take an hour. But, sometimes you don't have that. So you just do what you can do. But I'd say those would be probably the most time consuming
and
things.
Then the 3 runs, are you doing 30-minute runs? What are you doing?
I'm gonna talk people through each one of these things. So I'll get to it when we get to the runs. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine. No, it's fine. Right. You can answer those questions.
Okay. And you let me know if people have questions as we go.
Absolutely.
So we'll start with the 3 heavy strength training sessions that I do. And this has really evolved over time. I mean, I used to mostly run and just sort of lightly lift on the periphery, which is what most runners or endurance athletes do. They shouldn't, but that's what they do. And then I got really into it when CrossFit kind of came on the map, and I got into Olympic weightlifting, which I still do and I absolutely love. And I got really, really into it, lifting heavy and doing a lot more frequency and volume than I'm doing now. And now, at this point in my life, I'm almost 40. I'm not CrossFitting anymore. So I've kind of just landed on, what's a nice balance, that's going to, I think, allow me to do all the other things I want to do, not take up too much time, give me the body composition I want, and help me last a long time, because that matters to me too. So basically for these 3 body sessions, the emphasis for me is strength, functionality, and efficiency, and then also training explosive power. So on the strength side of things, and we've talked about this before, if you really are looking for maximum strength, you're going to go really high weight, really low rep, long rest periods, which a lot of people are confused about, as we've talked about before. And that it's a neurological adaptation that you're looking for in order to build strength. And you actually can do that if you want to, without putting on a ton of size. And for me, being a woman who actually can put on muscle pretty easily, it's not like a hard thing or a concern for me, which is unique. Most women, that's not the case. I like that. So that's kind of how I lift. And then on the side of functionality and efficiency, really I build all of my strength workouts around basically the 4 big lifts. So if anyone has done starting strength or have a background in powerlifting or anything, you're looking at your squat, your deadlift, your bench, and your press. Usually those are the big 4. So I hit those in some capacity every single week, usually using barbells. And, you can get creative if you're traveling or, I don't know, on vacation or something, but usually we're looking at heavy squats, heavy deads, heavy presses, heavy bench. I touch on them once a week. They're not just those lifts, I think, and I've said this before, should really be central to every single person, no matter if you're 20 or you're 75. Everybody should be working those movement mechanics into their weekly routine. It might be body weight. It might be 300 pounds. It might be a barbell. It might be a dumbbell version. It might be a scaled version of it, depending on the body, how trained they are, what their injuries are, things like that. But they're so functional, and they're also compound, which simply means any movement really that moves you through more than one joint. And if you look at those movements like the squat, you have flexion through the ankle, through the knee, through the hip. So you're just getting a ton of full body muscle activation, and you're going to get more and more maximal activation the heavier you go or the closer to your max that you go.
Michelle,
does that make sense?
Yeah, Michelle's asking, is this a morning, noon, evening? How do you rotate that?
Oh, just in terms of like what time of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Gosh. What I tell people is do it when you'll do it. Like it's really not.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a a lot of us do find that we're more likely to get it done if we get it done in the morning. I've always been a morning exerciser, but I think that's mostly just due to it working well with my family and my kids' schedule. I don't know that was, I spent years waking up really, really early, which I did not find pleasant. Right. And now I'm kind of in a place where I really, really value sleep. So if you could sleep in and you had the luxury of doing your lift at like lunchtime or right after lunch, I think that would be amazing. You'd have been awake for a while. You would have had time. Because some people also, especially if you want to fuel before a lift like this, it's really hard to eat at 5 a.m. A lot of people don't wake up hungry.
And then do like a heavy lift.
Yeah. So I think there's benefits to a lot of different time frames. Some people actually work out right after work, and that works well for them. The one thing you have to watch with evening time is that it can keep you awake. Like it can really,
because it restarts your metabolism or whatever, restarts your energy.
There's all sorts of hormonal things, and like you're just, you know that like when you were like in college and you were studying for hours and you're like, I gotta go wake up. You just go hit the gym for a while. And then you're like, I'm good to go. It gives you mental clarity. It gives you energy.
When I'm coaching basketball and I come home, sometimes it's hard for me to fall asleep.
Yeah. And all the adrenaline and all those other things. So you do have to watch that. So I guess all that to say is there's probably pros and cons to any time of the day. I probably sometime midday would be the most ideal so that you could maximize sleep. You could have plenty of time to get food on board. But again, that's just not always gonna, it's just not always gonna work. So ultimately, Michelle, get it done when you are most likely to get it done. Like that's my answer. That's a good answer. Sorry, good question.
I guess, I know we're going to go to each section too, but how does that relate to like, is it better to run in the morning and then heavy lift in the afternoon, or is it better to?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, you might. Are you talking about doing double days, or are you just asking about those things individually?
Well, do you? Well, I guess would you call a double day a lift and a run? Would that be a double day?
Yeah, I mean, a double day traditionally is like doing a morning workout or an earlier in the day workout, and then coming back and doing a whole other workout. I don't. Almost never do I recommend that to people. And if you're just asking, like, is it more ideal to run in the morning? No, not necessarily. If it's really hot where you are, you might benefit from running in the morning. You know what I mean? So a lot of these things are just situational and preference and what's going to work with your life and your schedule. Because I think the biggest issue with things like this is just making whether you're making excuses or they are actually legit excuses. Like, well, I have to pick my kids up from school. It's like, well, why did you plan your workout then? Pick a different time. You have to be as, strategic as you can be. And I don't think there's really a wrong or right answer. And if there is, it's going to be so minuscule that it doesn't matter. Like, just go when it's going to work the best for you. Does that answer your question? Okay. So we talked about the strength, kind of the reps, the sets, that we're looking for neurological adaptation there, at least for me, because I'm not looking to put on a lot of size because I already carry a decent amount of muscle for a woman. The functionality and the efficiency of the big lifts, and they're excellent, they're functional, and they're also very efficient in terms of time spent, time under tension, because of how they're also compound. And I even with the few amount of accessories that I do, which is not that many, I do not stand around and bicep curl. And this is not to demean bicep curls. They're a perfectly good movement. They are great for beginners. It's harder to hurt yourself. There's a lot of things, pros to movements like that. But in terms of bang for your buck, in terms of efficiency, you're not getting that. So most of even my accessories are going to be like chin-ups, pull-ups, dips, and even those are compound, right? Single leg lunges, split squats, things where you're still moving through more than one joint. And that's just, I like the challenge of it. I like the stimulus that you get. And again, you don't end up needing to do as many movements to cover as many muscle groups and get the training effect that you want. So there's that. And then lastly, I said explosive power. And this is a big one. For me, I like the Olympic lifts. Obviously, for a lot of people listening, you might just be like, no, what are the Olympic lifts? Like, what in the world are you even talking about? That's the clean and jerk and the snatch. They're highly technical. They take a lot of training. I mean, you can live a full life without doing them for sure. So I'll get to that in a second. But I'm
close to doing that.
You're close to living
a full life.
You're almost there.
I've done some because you've taught me how to do them.
Have I?
But what was what was funny about those is I did lifted weights in college when I played basketball. And it's just my coach was just old school. A lot of bench.
No Olympics in there.
Not that I can remember.
Which I think is insane, but honestly, a lot of those guys never learned. And a lot of them will be like, you don't need it. And it's like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
Like, especially
sit-ups, curls,
if
bench.
you want to be able to jump, you know,
the peck butterfly thing.
Yeah.
You
He
know?
was like old.
Like that was old.
He was
old
Uncle
school.
Rico. Uncle Rico was teaching you.
I did think we did do squats.
That's good. At least there was some squat action in there, but I don't. Yeah, so many things. So yeah, I like the Olympic lifts. Again, super. I mean, talk about the most efficient way to just fire almost every single muscle in your body. They call it triple extension when you go from
all the way down to all the way up.
Yeah, well, basically it's explosive, rapid extension through the ankle, the knee, and the hip to create maximum power to get the barbell where you want it to be, right? Be it front rack or overhead on a snatch. So. And of course, you're going to have to go a lot lighter because you're trying to move the load very quickly. That's kind of the definition of power. But, it's an amazing way to train and stay on top of your fast twitch muscle fibers, which I am very concerned with as I get older. And we've talked about this. We'll talk about it again when we talk about why I sprint. I think a lot of people see things like, power clean or a power snatch or, doing sprints when you're like in your 40s. They're like, that's insane. Why would I do that? That seems so lofty and so extreme and not like something I need to do. But honestly, I think our concern with maintaining and, continuing to train our fast twitch muscle fibers should be at the top of our list because they atrophy over time. Not so much with the slow twitch, but the fast twitch just start going. And this is why you never see old Olympic sprinters. They're always young, like always. Yeah. But you can see like in Norway or in Sweden, or you can see like Nordic, like cross-country skiers, people who are marathoners, people who are doing the more distance and endurance-y and slow twitch, basically is what I'm saying. The sport is, you see the careers of these athletes being quite a bit longer. Okay. And it's because of that very reason, so it's very, very interesting. So what I don't want, and again, we're just talking about me because we're talking about how I train. I don't want to get slow. I don't like that. And I think that there is something about maintaining your fast twitch muscle fibers that keeps you young. And I mean that young in terms of what you can do in the gym. Yeah.
Feeling athletic for a longer amount of time.
In terms of what you can do in your life. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because if you track this all the way out and you think of like that old man walking down the street and how slow they walk. You know what I mean? Like they can still walk, right? Yeah. All those slow twitch, like stabilization muscles are still, they can kind of hold themselves up. They can stand on two legs. They can walk, but they're so slow, right? And I think...
And they look a little stiff.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that go with age, but but one of the reasons also, I would say for longevity to do some sort of explosive power training. And again, I'll get to this. It doesn't have to be the Olympic lifts, is that it's for injury prevention. Because if you think about things like reaction time, like if you trip on the curb and your muscles cannot fight, your neurological connection to your muscles.
Your quick response.
It just can't fire quick enough for you to put your foot out and catch you. You biff it, you break your hip, it's all downhill from there. So like there's so many reasons from a very like neurological standpoint why just training,
an aging standpoint.
Touching on something fast twitch is really important. But I'm just going to say this right now. Again, it doesn't have to be that technical. It could be a jump squat. It could be a box jump. It could be jump rope. It could be some double unders, things that make your muscles react really, really, really quickly. That would be good enough. And that's more than what most people are doing. So don't look at those things as like fancy or like only what the young show-offy people do or whatever. Now, the instance for injury does go up, right? There's a reason a lot of people would rather just do like, quad extensions at a slow, steady pace or whatever. Right. It's safer, right? Yeah. And I would never take a beginner and untrained body and be like, let's do plyometrics. Yeah. I mean, that seems like just common sense. That's a very bad idea. It is, but I think it's worth considering that that's a goal to move towards. And you can kind of baby step your way to that in some capacity. And again, you don't need a ton. You don't need to be training twice a day like the Olympic weightlifters are doing. You don't need that. But I try to touch on power clean once a week. I try to touch on power snatch once a week. Yeah. In maybe one of my boot camps, I might toss like a jumping split squat in or just something, right? And I mean, that's enough.
Because you'll teach a class where you kind of integrate
and you'll just touch on it. It doesn't have to be a lot. And with stuff like this, the speed is what your focus is, right? And so because of that, you're not going to be doing 10 reps or 50 reps, or we're talking lightweight, low rep, high quality movement. That's what you're looking for, which is one of the reasons I do not like what CrossFit has done with box jumps, where it's like do 50, do 40, do 30. I don't think it's a good idea. I think that if you're weighing the conditioning that you might get out of it. It's really more lung conditioning than anything else.
Yeah.
But you're weighing it against the instance of injury. I just think it's really stupid. So I'd rather see someone train a higher box jump that's actually a neurological challenge for anywhere from like 2 to 4 reps. That's what I would do. So there you go. 3 days a week. Heavy, full body, emphasis on strength, functionality, and efficiency. And I'm always touching on explosive power for all the reasons I just listed off. Now, I will say this right now, though, because I want this conversation to be as helpful and applicable to as many of you as possible. If you're a dude listening and you're like, yeah, but I do want to put muscle on, or if you're most of the women out there, most of you who do not put muscle on very easily, and that is most of you. Yeah. If that was me and I was like, okay, I actually want to put muscle on, I want to grow my muscles, generally speaking, my reps would come up. And I'd probably raise my lifting volume, like over the week, reps and sets would come up, and I would probably take away some of the steady state cardio that I do. Okay. And I'm just going to say that right now, because remember, hypertrophy, which is just the fancy talk for growing your muscle cells, right? Which again, so many people want that. It's really all about that acid buildup and whatever movement you're doing in whatever rep range you're doing, really from anywhere from like 10 to 30. It's a pretty broad rep range. Okay. It's on the higher side. It's what most people would consider higher rep, honestly. But you have to max out in that rep range. Like doing 10 of these with a 5-pound dumbbell when it's like not even that hard, that's going to do very little for you, because our bodies will only recruit the minimum amount of muscle fibers that need to be recruited in order for a movement to get done. So it has to be like max effort, and usually you end up with more soreness. That's another beautiful thing about lifting really heavyweight low rep, is you get very little soreness from that. Okay. Which is strange. Most people don't think that. They're like, oh, if it's super heavy, you're going to get tear muscle more. Yeah, whatever, no, I mean, a lot of people who lift like that, athletes who lift like that, will lift every single day. Okay. And they absolutely can, because they're not dealing with soreness. It's all neurological. But when you get up into that higher rep, like some sort of CrossFit, type thing, at a max weight, that will tear you up like big time. We can have a whole conversation about how much is too much, and how sore are you actually supposed to be and all that. But it's that damage, that acid buildup, and then the rebuild over time during the recovery that causes muscles to grow. So anyways, I would change if I wanted to put
what do you mean? So heavier weight, you said, tends to maybe emphasize neurological versus.
I just mean the adaptation that you're looking for in order to actually get stronger is not a muscle size adaptation. It's a neurological, like brain to muscle adaptation. And you can best trigger that by lifting very heavy weights, but at very low reps. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, but what is that? What's the benefit of that neurological connection?
Well, it's what trains or causes your muscles to actually get stronger. I mean, that's the mechanism.
Okay. So it's not your muscles tearing so much.
No, exactly. No.
It's your brain's connection to that muscle.
It's a neurological
That's
adaptation.
what makes you stronger?
Yeah. And that's why.
So could I just will it?
No, you actually have to have that stimulus of that heavy weight. But the cause of what is making you stronger is more neurological than it is like making your muscles bigger. Yeah, and that's why you don't get very sore. But anyone knows this, and like bodybuilders know this. Like, oh no, what gets you sore is when you're like, I'm going to do 20 of these. Yeah, right. And now it still has to be a max weight for that 20, right? Like, but so that matters. But that's what gets you sore. Like so sore. I just did a boot camp. No, I didn't. It wasn't a boot camp. No, it was my online women's strength training class that I am doing right now. And I have a live version and I have an online version of it. And I just normally I keep it very strengthy and like reasonably hypertrophy, like reps of, anywhere from 5 to 10. We're being reasonable. But every once in a while, in this last week, I did it. I tossed in a high repper, and it was a chipper of 50, 40, 30. And it was just like air squat, elevated, because you can, there's only so many movements you can even safely do in a rep scheme like that. And I knew a lot of these ladies had never touched that, like ever. Like that's like telling a kid to go run a marathon. You know what I mean? So I gave them a pep talk, and I gave them an alternative rep scheme if they're just starting and all these things, but a lot of them did it. And the feedback I got was, I have never been so sore. And it was a body weight squat. But it's the reps, man. You know what I mean? And like, you don't get sore like that going really heavy for 2. You just don't, you know? I mean, unless you're a completely untrained body. And in that case, anything would make you sore. I mean, obviously.
I guess we'll have to talk about the neurological muscle connection later.
We should find an exercise scientist to bring on
that
here
would be cool.
Really nerd out with us.
Who should I do?
I don't know. I'll think on it. There's a lot of good guys.
I like that because I'm very interested in that. because part of it is because it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, which is why women forever have been afraid of lifting really heavy weight at low rep.
Yeah,
when really that's not how you put size on your body.
Right.
It is, you do though need to have experience. It's your risk for injury is probably the highest, right? You're loaded up at 80 to 95%.
If your ankle twist or whatever, it's like, it's all, you're going down.
It's all percentage of your 1 rep max. So it's like, in order to operate at 90% of your 1 rep max, you got to know what you're doing, and you have to have a body that can even handle what you're neurologically asking yourself to do, which beginners don't have. So there's a lot of nuance there. But anyways, let's move on.
So I think we answered Michelle's question a little bit on that.
Did we? We talked all about it.
And maybe mention this again. All right. So what's our recovery time there?
For what?
For kind of just the
hypertrophy?
Yeah.
Usually it's a little shorter. So you're looking at like 3 to 5 often minutes of rest for really, really heavy sets of strength. Okay. So that's where the time, 3 to 5. Rarely do people do 5, 3 to 4 maybe, which feels very long. And it's hard to do. You're probably looking more at like anywhere from 1.5 to 3 minute rests. And again, it's more volume, more reps, more sets, slightly higher rep schemes for putting muscle on. Yeah. So, okay, well, let's talk about the running. All right. Now, I said with my bird's eye view that I'm doing 3 runs a week right now. Now that, I just want to say, you guys, is for very specific reasons. And for most women in my position, like kind of stressful life, almost 40, married to Gabe, 3 kids, not necessarily training for, like a 10K or something, I would not tell her to run 3 times a week, just to be clear. Now, my background is in running and I do really love it. So that's worth something. Sometimes you do something not because it's the best plan for you, but because you really like it. Like, you can weigh that in and that's fine, right? Yeah. Number 2, I am mostly running 3 days a week because my girls are into running and I want to do it with them. I have what I have named as parental FOMO, and I can't help myself. I have fear of missing out. And so I'm like, if I don't get on the train right now, they are going to just completely pass me up and I won't be able to run with them. So, I mean, what do you call that? It's not smart. It's not smart. Because
our kids, our older daughters they're
fast,
pretty fast and competitive. Fast, and they're, our 14-year-old is got a good gift of running. And our 12-year-old, who's going to be 12 in August, she's just a fierce competitor.
Yeah.
And she's super short, but overcomes a lot with her fierceness, Well,
I think, she's gonna go really far.
She's got some fierce competitive spirit that helps her a lot.
Totally. And there's something so special about running hard with my own girls, because anyone who's done anything, anybody who has suffered one way or another, like shoulder to shoulder with someone, it always brings you closer together. This is why, football players have that camaraderie and soldiers have that camaraderie, and, people that you train, and just do all these hard, these hard miles or whatever. It just does. It just brings you together. And so it's just a really special thing that I can do with them. And it's worth it to me, even though I honestly will tell you, I don't think it's an ideal training plan for me. It's not the worst. Sure. It's only 3, and they're all very kind of minimum effective dose and very specific. And we can talk about what they are. It's not just 3 random runs, and we'll get there. But I would, I'll just tell you right now, if someone was like, I just want to be fit and I want to lose some weight, I would not tell them to do this.
Okay.
This is stressful and it makes you so hungry, like so hungry. It is not a good weight loss plan. Okay. So I just want to caveat here. And neither is driving your cortisol up. Okay. That's not a good weight loss plan either. So all that said, I'm going to tell you what 3 types of runs I choose to do right now. And my girls mostly do these with me, depending on our schedules and what we can do. And then sometimes they do different things because they're like doing volleyball or they're doing basketball, they're doing other things. So basically my 3 runs, and this is really actually at the tail end of when I was back in the day running more competitively. This is what I did. I did bigger versions of them, but I actually found that if I compressed my running down to just 3 days a week, rather than like more junky miles, like 5, days a week, like a lot of runners run, just getting some runners to take like 1 day off a week is like hard. Like a lot of them are out there every single day. For me, I actually found that I was faster, overall when I actually ran less and I ran more purposefully. So I will note that. So anyways, I basically have 1 aerobic steady state run. Okay. So that would be the classic long run. I'm not going farther than 5 right now. I don't think there's any reason for it. But I do one of those. That's usually on Friday with the girls. So that's going to be tomorrow. I do 1 set of like all out max effort sprints, which I am such a big fan of. for almost everyone. I actually just messaged out to all of my online strength training ladies. I decided to start doing like a health tip of the week, just to, I don't know, so that we can talk about other training things, talk about nutrition, just, keep us all talking about stuff. Cause it's just, there's a lot to talk about. And the one that I sent out this week was everyone should sprint. And again, it's sort of a similar argument to what I was talking about with the Olympic weightlifting or any kind of really explosive power training, is that it's just keeping you fast. It's keeping your fast twitch muscle fibers awake and operating as best we can as we age, because they really seem to want to tank, right around now. It's super synergistic with fat burn. So a great, and again, like I said, if someone was like, I want to lose some weight on the cardiovascular side of things, what should I do? I would not say do a bunch of 5-mile runs. I would say sprint, maybe even twice a week if you can afford it. I'm just doing so many other things. It doesn't feel smart to me to sprint more than once a week. So I try to just hit this one time a week. And it's also very synergistic with maintaining your muscle mass. And we've talked about that. If you just look at the physiques of sprinters versus distance runners. And I very much like that too. So when I say like max effort sprints, I'm talking like 20 to 30 second max effort bursts with a good amount of recovery in between, like 2 to 3 minute recovery in between. And let me just tell you, number one, these do not have to be runs. Running is probably the most dangerous way to sprint, honestly. And I mean, even me being I'm fairly experienced runner. I'm fairly strong. I do all the things. I stretch. Every time I sprint, I'm like, oh, please don't pull something.
You feel like you're going to pull a hammy.
My quads, it's always something that's just like right on the line. And granted, I'm running as fast as I can because I've worked up to it. But man, you got to be careful with running. You can though. So if you just, and I like it because it's functional. I like the ability to run really fast for a short amount of time if I need to. I just think that's a nice thing to have, ideally without pulling a hamstring, right? That's what you want.
Yeah, me and Cash are starting to move our workouts around and do different things. And we sprinted on Wednesday morning.
That's good.
Just down the driveway and walked back.
Did he beat you?
No, he can't beat me in sprinting. But if he ran a mile, he'd probably beat me. He takes
off fast.
Yeah.
He just peters out a little bit. Yeah, I've noticed that. But I bet we're only gonna have a couple more years where we can say that.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
remember, puberty's gonna hit.
Yeah, and he's gonna,
we're gonna be like, come back.
In long distance, he could probably beat me right now.
Yeah, he does all right.
My oxygen is so bad right now.
He does all right.
But sprinting,
it's great you guys are mixing it up.
Yeah. The thing I like about sprinting is kind of the same thing as like in civilian life.
Yeah.
The biggest thing you probably ever need to do is sprint away or towards something.
I agree.
Right? Sprint away from a fire, sprint towards trouble, whatever.
And like, sprint towards or away. And like ladies, like towards your kid if they're in trouble, away if you need to run. It's just like, I think it's a good skill, and it's free. So maybe we should all be working on that.
And I mean, I didn't do a full top speed sprint.
That's probably smart.
Because I haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah. You can't start with that, guys. No, don't do it.
Yeah. So you kind of work your way into it. I already been running with Cash, but now we're kind of picking up the pace and basically sprinting. And
that's great.
Yeah, you've I didn't feel it, but I knew if I picked it up more, I'd probably feel like, okay, the hammies going.
Hammies, quads. Yeah.
I mean, I got groin issues, from injuries in college basketball and stuff like that. So
bad leg.
I've been doing bad leg and bad ab.
Yeah, he has some old injuries.
Old injuries. Then we'll do. I always forget. Cash reminds me of the name. Where you put one leg out in front of the other. Lunges. Yeah. But right now, the lunges I've been doing is more like a stretch lunge.
Because it's so snug.
Because it's so everything's so tight.
Those will make you real sore too.
Yeah, and they do a little bit, but they're more controlled because I'm putting my hand on my knee, kind of going down, a little more controlled, kind of stretch. Kind of keeping my back leg more straight than kind of bent when I go down.
Not pull your groin.
Yeah, just trying to stretch it all out and everything.
Yeah, but I mean, so that is a good point. If you guys decide you want to incorporate sprints, which you absolutely should, and if you decide I want to run, I think I can. Like I have healthy knees, like it's not a bad choice for me. First, at least a couple weeks of just like steady state running to get your body used to even just the eccentric slap down of that foot, or else it's going to be like shin splints, fasciitis, just like everything. So ease your body in. But I also want to say sprints do not have to exclusively be running. One of the best ways to sprint is on a bike, like on an assault bike.
Okay.
Super safe. I mean, not for your lungs, it's not safe. But
easier on your knees.
Easier on your joints, muscles even. Sure. So easy to get your heart rate up so high, so fast. I'm a huge fan, and I'll still mix things like that in, even though I prefer to run. I'll still mix them in because I think variety is good. You could also row. You could get on the, I mean, you could even swim. Like there's a lot of just any modality that you could safely do at max effort for a very short amount of time.
And that's probably my favorite part about sprinting.
Yeah.
Is it's fun.
It's short.
And because you aren't running 2 miles, 3 miles, whatever.
It's not that painful.
And it's not
really
that painful.
No.
And you get to run fast. I mean, you're pushing your body in a way you know, and so I actually I enjoyed the sprint portion of my workout on Wednesday because, you know, it's like there's that energy, that desire, that, you know, you're pushing yourself.
It's very invigorating.
And it's invigorating and you're going fast.
Yeah.
And you're doing it for 10 seconds or whatever.
Yeah. And I will say this, I see a lot of people running in particular who are not sprinting correctly. Now, if you are training for your fastest 5K ever or a 10K or something, there might be a place for like 800-meter repeats or, 10-second sub race pace mile repeats or, you know, very strategic speed work that is at longer distances at a certain pace for a certain reason. And I used to do that back when I was trying to like shave seconds off my 10K time, for example. But other than that, for the average Joe, when I say sprint, I mean sprint. And that should be 30 seconds or less, which is not very long. And you really need to at least work up to safely an actual max effort. Now, that part is hard because a lot of us have never asked our body to touch that threshold or get anywhere close to it. We just don't have any experience with it. So a lot of times what I see is people running and then they're like, time for sprints, and they just jog a little faster. I mean, that's basically what they're doing. And I am not judging you at all. If you're like, this is the first time I've ever done it, I don't want to hurt myself, I'm just going to kind of speed up a little and then I'm just feeling it out. Not talking to you, but so many people, they're not really sprinting. They're on that bike. They're going harder. It's not max effort. So if you can, you know, hear what I'm saying, pin it for when your body's ready to do it. You will get way more out of doing this if you are really, really pushing to your max. And there is something uncomfortable about it, but to your point, it's not for very long. And you get those long rest periods. And that's the other thing I see people not doing is they just sort of jog slightly faster for their sprint. And then they rest like 45 seconds. And then they do it again. And you can do it again because you're not working that hard. But again, what that is basically moderate intensity junk miles. And I don't say junk to be mean. I just mean you're in the no man's land. And you're not going to get, it's stressful to your body there, but without any real training stimulus, right? Like you're not being strategic enough, right? Either it should be like zone 2, very aerobic, very base work-y, where you can talk, not as stressful, spending time in your aerobic zone, or we should be at like VO2 max, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute, or you should be sprinting, which should be like literally at a force production or a rate or a speed where you could not go any farther than 30 seconds. You would just fall off your treadmill or whatever you're doing. Does that make sense? And again, it's like lifting really, really heavy. You have to work yourself up to it. Like you really do, or you really can hurt yourself or pass out or something, you know, for a system that's not used to max effort like that. But I just want to be clear, that's what I'm talking about. And then the third run, and this is the run that if I wasn't trying to keep up with my children, this is the run that I wouldn't do a third run. I would probably just alternate between two, probably. With all these different modality mechanisms that I'm talking about. But I have added in a Monday run after my lift. Let me tell you, it feels terrible in order to try to keep up with the children because of my FOMO. And so what I've been doing is alternating between either a lactate threshold run or every other week, a VO2 max training. And I don't want to get too sciencey or nerdy, but basically a lactate threshold run, or actually some people call these an anaerobic threshold run, is basically running, and I can't be exact. You can only be exact if you're in a lab and they're like measuring lactate production in your blood, things like that. But I've been running long enough that I can gauge based off how I feel pretty well. And basically you're running at a pace that's very, very uncomfortable. Usually this is a slightly shorter run, like 3 to 4 miles usually. And that's about as long as I can take it, honestly. And you're running at a pace where you are just right at the line between staying aerobic and or switching over to majority anaerobic energy system. And you would be doing that because at that point you would be producing too much lactate for your body to clear. And it's really, the science of all the different energy systems is really interesting. But if you are tuned in enough to how they work and how your body feels kind of throughout that spectrum, you will know that place, that pace, you know, or heart rate. You could look at it as heart rate also. where you're like, this is so uncomfortable. I either want to just speed up and get it over with or slow down, right? And you don't do either. You just sit there right at that threshold. And it is so mentally challenging, but it really is effective at slowly pushing that threshold up so that over time, out of your entire capacity, more of it is aerobic. Does that make sense? You don't go anaerobic as soon. So if you look at really highly trained athletes, you know, like the Lance Armstrong type, I don't know, I'm so old that I still reference him.
Dope Armstrong is what we call him.
Oh man, poor guy. They were all doping. Every single one of them. But when you look at like elite trained endurance type athletes, their lactate threshold is like at like 90% of their max. It's like most of their capacity. They're able to remain aerobic, which is so much more comfortable when you're in the presence of oxygen. You're able to effectively clear that lactate. You get an untrained individual, it's like way lower, right? They switch over fast, and that's why they fatigue and then stop or, you know, poop out, whatever. So I do that. And then I also do VO2 training, which I am a huge fan of. And I've been kind of on a soapbox lately about really pushing people to work on VO2 and then to work on those max effort, short 30-second sprints. And VO2 training is simply just training in a way that helps you improve the max amount of O2 or oxygen your body can take in and utilize. Really, it usually is max effort bursts. And again, doesn't have to be running, can be biking, can be rowing. Those work great for this, could be swimming, whatever. But max effort in anywhere from a 4 to 6 minute window. And then you do an equivalent rest. So if you worked for 4, you rest for 4. If you worked for 5, you rest for 5. And then you do it again and you do it again. And it's very, very uncomfortable. Again, if it's truly max effort. And I do see people say they're doing VO2 training, but let me tell you something. If you do 5 minutes as hard as you can, and then you just hop off the treadmill and talk with your friends,
you aren't doing it.
I mean, do what you do, but don't call that VO2 training. It's not. It's not. Okay. You should be. I usually assume I need to name it. I usually end up on the floor in like a child's pose. Like I don't know why. I think I'm just like trying to like open my lungs up, but that is always where I end up. And people are always like, "What time did you get? What time did you get?" And I can't say. I can't talk. I'll just be like, look at the rower. I can't like that's VO2 training. It is very, very uncomfortable. You shouldn't look forward to it. But my goodness, in terms of one of the markers that's going to carry your cardiovascular health on a good trajectory over time, that is one of the best ways for you to spend your time. And you don't even, it doesn't even take that long. One of the most famous protocols for VO2 training is called the 4x4. Came out of like Scandinavia or something. That stuff's always coming out of there because they're so hardcore with like skiing and things like that. It's literally 4 on, 4 off, 4 times.
4 minutes on?
Yeah, 4 minutes of work, 4 minutes of rest, 4 minutes of work, 4 minutes of rest. And you could do any modality of cardiovascular exercise that you could safely get to a max heart rate doing that. You know, there's some things that you probably like, I wouldn't do 4 minutes of burpees. Like I wouldn't do that. I think that would probably hurt you. I don't think that would be a good idea. You could probably like mess up your shoulder. You could, you'd probably poop out. So again, a rower, a run, a bike, those all work really, really well. So I just alternate. I don't think anyone needs VO2 max training more than like twice a month. So I usually alternate between a lactate threshold run. So either way, Monday just sucks. To be very clear, like it's really tough, but those are the 3 runs that I do. Yeah.
All right. So what's next?
One Metcon, you guys. One Metcon. And boy, does that make me sad, because if I could just do like nasty, gnarly CrossFit WODs, like hero WODs every day without paying major consequences, I would. There is something about like the grind of that, like pull-ups and running and overhead squat, like whatever, 2,000 wall balls. Like I just love excessive, super painful. Like I love it, but they're so stressful on your body. And remember, we've talked about this back when I was CrossFitting, and even back when I was CrossFitting, I was doing less than all the other CrossFitters because I already was like, I'm faster if I do less. I picked up on that, but you have to you're doing a certain amount for your conditioning, and then you have to do more to stay on top of every single skill.
You kind of push.
You got to touch on the double under. You got to touch on the handstand push. Oh, you got to make sure you're rowing. You got to make sure, you know, you got to like touch on all those things. And I just was sick all the time. I was injured all the time. I tanked my thyroid during that time. I was just a mess. So I really, as much as I love it,
Annie would always get frustrated with me because I wouldn't be sick.
He would never be sick. He'd just eat Cheetos and feel great. And I did. I was angry. I'm not as sick anymore because I do less. But
because you figured it out.
Yeah. So I guess one important point, you guys, and I've talked about this in past shows, and again, I can't see questions, so let me know if I have any. Any workout like this that any kind of CrossFit, Metcon, anything out of Orange Theory, anything out of Body Pump, anything that is called HIIT class, it's all cardio. Okay. You can, it's totally fine that you're doing different movements. There might be some push-ups in there. There might be some pull-ups in there. That is not a strength workout. That is cardio. Okay. So just make sure you label it correctly. And that's the reason I only do one of these, is because I'm choosing to run 3 times a week. So if I wasn't running at all, and there's plenty of people out there who aren't, they just hate running, they don't want to do it, and that's perfectly fine. You might be able to afford 2 of these. And that's perfectly fine, especially if that's just a type of cardio that you prefer. A lot of times it's in a group setting, and that's really nice. It's motivating. And some people are like, I don't want to sit on a rower for 45 minutes. That sounds terrible. So they go and do a Metcon instead. And that's fine. But just make sure that you have all of your buckets labeled correctly. I've got 4 pretty intense workouts in my cardio bucket, and that is absolute max for me. I would not do more. If I did more, I would get slower. My body would probably be too stressed out. My sleep would probably start to go. All the things that happen when you're just stressing your body out too much. Right. So that's really all I have to say about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then really the last thing I have is just one injury prevention session. All right. And this is really important.
Like merch.
Injury prevention. It's like merch, but it's prevention. There's a lot of people out there who are doing nothing and need to do something, right? And then there's a whole other group of people out there, men and women alike, who love to do the CrossFit and the heavy lifting and all the things that we are sitting or running, whatever. We're sitting here and saying those are all good things, but they do not take care of their core.
Yeah.
Or I would even take it broader than that. They're not taking care of shoulder health, hip health, glute health, all the things that kind of come along with your body, having symmetry, having the right strength and the right muscles, having the right mobility in the right spots, dealing with compensations that might be taking place in your body due to this particular sports that you engage in, just all those things.
Yeah.
I believe you really only need, unless you're a special case and you might be, but 1 big dose a week for a lot of people is enough.
Yeah.
With my women's strength training program that I'm doing right now, we take a different approach. We actually do small doses every workout. So 3 times a week, small doses, which works good too. It just depends on your schedule. For me, this is the Pilates boot camp class that I teach. So it happens to be a class that I teach, and it's early in the morning.
You can participate in.
And I participate in it. And I don't know that I'll ever not do it, because it is literally what holds me together.
Yeah.
Like, it is what holds me together. So it's a huge dose of core work, and obviously understanding how to functionally contract and activate your core is very, very important, especially if you've had children. But we're also doing a lot of scaption work. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people, especially coming out of like the CrossFit type world, where you spend a lot of time on the rig, pull-upping, toe-to-barring, muscle-upping, all these things. It's just shoulder impingement after shoulder impingement. And a lot of that could be solved if some of the smaller muscles in your rear shoulder and like mid-back were activated on when I say a regular basis, literally once a week.
Yeah.
You could totally, you can just spot them from a mile away. And now it's like, I can't lift my arms over my head. It's just like so sad. And it's sad because it's preventable. It's boring.
Yeah.
It's boring stuff. Doing stuff for like low trap is super boring. There's nothing very sexy about it.
Yeah.
But it's so important. And we do a lot of glute medius work. Women in particular need glute medius work because we have a bigger Q angle, which means we're more likely for our knee to cave in life, in sport, even when we squat, things like that. And it's a one-way ticket to injury. And it's such an easy, I don't want to say magic panacea fix, but it will greatly increase the odds of you not getting injured. So there's just a lot of things to do. So make sure you are taking care of that boring body maintenance one way or another, especially if you're going to also be beating yourself up in the gym.
Right.
Because it's just really, really important, especially as we age.
So in the name of injury prevention, a listener asks about how much sleep do you suggest every night?
Thank you, listener.
Annie loves talking about sleep now.
I love talking about sleep.
I'm a night person. Annie's used to be a night person, and
I am no longer a night person.
Now Annie, she does get up. You do get up a couple times early, 5-ish a week, twice a week. Is it just once a week right now?
Yeah, I only have one official day during the summer where I have to be up at like 4:50. I don't like to see the 4s, you guys. I don't like to see the 4s, but I do it for Pilates.
I just yawned when you mentioned the 4.
Cue the yawning. But I say I'm up between 6 and 7 most days. So.
But you're talking like 8 hours sleep. I mean, what's your kind of?
I mean, the standard is 8 hours. And from the research that I've looked at and some of the sleep experts that I've listened to, I believe 8 ish is a decent recommend for men. What they are saying
for women
is that women need more.
Yeah.
And I just anecdotally, from my own experience, from all the different women I've worked with, I agree with that. Now, that doesn't mean that we're always going to get it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will say women thrive the most on like 9 to 10. And I will tell you, I know.
That's amazing.
But again,
yeah.
I mean, come on, in the science, in the world of science and health, they'll say, well, this would be optimal. It's like me talking about my workout schedule. A lot of you are going to be like, I do not have time to do, and I totally understand that, but
also you go through phases in life where it's like you got 3 kids under 3 years old.
Whisper into your newborn's ear that you need 10 hours of sleep, and let's just see if that, totally, it's phases of life. But I think to that point, it's at least valid to hear. It's helpful to hear what they think would be best. And then you can just do your best to get to it. And that might mean if you have little kids or babies who aren't sleeping well through the night, maybe you're napping during the day to make up for it.
Yeah.
And then maybe as soon as you get out of that intense time period, you pay off a little sleep debt, which is what I feel like I've been doing for the last several years, is actually paying off some sleep debt, because I think it builds up. But ladies, especially if you feel run down, you have a bunch of kids, you feel like your cortisol is dysregulated, you have some like adrenal dysfunction, a lot of the symptoms, sleep is so healing. And I mean, I just cannot reiterate enough how important it is. And most of the experts in the adrenal field, they will say, literally the number one way to heal your adrenals, number one by a long shot, is reduce stress and sleep more.
Wow.
Like sleep more. Even if you are like, okay, I'm going to get my husband on board. We're going to, arrange some babysitting, and like my mom's going to come help, whatever it takes to even get you a couple months of like just almost therapeutic levels of sleep. I bet you that would be a game changer for a lot of people if you're in a bad spot. But if you're just asking, hey, I mean, I'm fine, but like what's recommended? At least 8 for dudes is recommended. Pushing closer to 9 to 10 for women is optimal. I know. And then when I read that, I was like, yes, I 100% agree. Yes, please.
Doctors tell me to sleep more.
The doctor
not gonna push
says
back on that
I
one.
can't get up. Anyway, so no, that was a really good question. Okay. I just have a few, that was kind of me covering in fairly, decent detail, all the different things that I do in a week and why. A couple, how are we doing on time? Well, we're fine. Okay. It's summer. We can do whatever we want. Actually, right when I left the house, the kids, a big Amazon box came, and all of the books that we had ordered, they just read so much. Like they're constantly reading, and they're constantly like, what is the guy that Cash is reading? Something Hale, Nathan Hale. Yeah. It's great. Great little books for boys. I mean, probably girls too, but like, stuff on the Revolutionary War. And this one's about, he was like, this one's about Napoleon, they were so excited. So they're probably just reading, and they probably don't even know I'm gone. But anyways, okay. So here's a couple of just random thoughts. And then I do have a question from your cousin, Libby.
Oh, okay.
That I want to answer. I told her I would over text, so don't let me forget.
Okay.
Okay. In terms of your own exercise routine, you guys, all that to say, like I said at the start, sometimes I don't even like telling people what I do because I am unique. I am paid to be fit. I am also blessed to be a mom who, I'm not a stay-at-home. I do work on the side, but there is no pressure at all. Thank you, Gabriel, for me to work a certain amount, pay the bills. And I know some women are in a position where they just don't have that luxury. So I completely understand that I'm living kind of a luxurious life in terms of.
So you are a stay-at-home mom. I think you said I'm not.
Well, I'm not. Sorry, I'm not a stay-at-home mom in that I do work on the side.
Right.
I still. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're a stay-at-home mom.
I do work on the side,
and the money she does make, it doesn't go to our bills. I'm responsible for that.
I'm not working an 8 to 5. I make my own hours. I don't have financial pressure on myself, which is I am so thankful for, and it is a gift. It is a gift.
It's freeing to be able to.
It very much, And I just know not all women or men are in that situation. I totally know that. But anyways, I guess I qualified that enough. But if you guys are just looking at your own routine, hopefully this was helpful to some degree. Please, number one, note that what your health and fitness looks like is going to be completely relative to the phase of life you're in. The routine that you decide to do, the one that you will do and can do is the best one for you. Even if it's all the way down to just going on some walks and doing some trigger sessions in your house, that is better than nothing. All right. It is better than nothing. If you are in a place where you're like, okay, I know I could be doing more, I just don't want to, or feel like it, or know what to do. Hopefully this conversation was helpful for you. And remember, if you're going to make changes, add in one thing at a time. titrate up, baby step in.
Don't start off sprinting at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. So because you'll hurt yourself, you'll burn out, all the things, so just like baby step up. If you're someone who has a very robust routine, you're very dedicated, you have good habits in place, but it's not working for you, change. Okay. Change is everything. And I think people really underestimate the power of change. And this is true on the side of diet. And it's also just as true on the side of exercise. Your body adapts to everything. Every stress you will ever put on it, unless it kills you. But up to that point, it will adapt, right? And that's true with no matter how great your keto diet goes, after a while, it doesn't work as well. No matter how great your exercise routine is, after a while, if you do the same thing over and over and over again, your body adapts. It's not going to work as well. So stop doing that thing where you do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's the definition of insanity, and change it up. And hopefully some of the variables and the things that we talked about today might give you some ideas as to how you could mix things up. Max effort with an intentionality, I would say, with whatever it is you're doing, be it, more fires.
We got a lot of fires going around.
We are burning over here. Max effort and intentionality are so important when it comes to really anything that you're doing in the gym, be it a sprint session, a 3-rep max squat or whatever. You are going to get more out of pushing the weight on that 3-rep max squat, so it actually is your 3-rep max, and only doing that 3 times, than you are doing that 5 times in the no man's land. In the no man's land, where it's just too stressful on your body to be like a walk, but not stressful enough to really achieve what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so go for quality over quantity, be intentional. Avoid just the junk volume. All right. Avoid the junk volume. It is not helpful and also takes up a lot of time, which I know a lot of you don't have. And remember also the bucket theory. I don't really know. I think I made that up. I don't think it's actually a theory, but I use the bucket analogy with my clients all the time. Who, and a lot of the people, the athletes you work with, are just go-getters, and they want everything. They want to do it all. They want all the goals. They want it all now. And one thing you need to keep in mind is that, everything is kind of, to some degree, a bucket. Like your endurance, you got an endurance bucket over here. You have like an explosive power bucket here. You have like a, maximum strength bucket here. And it's impossible to have all of those buckets full all the time. Like you can have them all kind of full, which is what I go for. I try to be balanced. So I'm not going to be the fastest runner, but I can do okay. I'm not going to be the strongest person in the gym, but I can do okay. And that's where I like to be, just to be well-rounded. You know what I mean? And to some extent, that's what CrossFit is. And I do like that about CrossFit, where you kind of have to be decent at everything rather than the best at one thing. But you can't be the absolute strongest and the absolute fastest and have the best endurance. Like you can't. So it's just it's a game where you're just sort of doing this, right? And so you got to be reasonable. The more you pour into one bucket in terms of the way you train, what you prioritize, there's another one, you're going to lose a little from the other ones. So keep that in mind and be realistic. And if you want to have, goals, which everyone should, have one at a time, right? Like, don't have the goal. And ladies, you need to keep this in mind too. It can be tough to have the goal of building muscle, but also losing weight at the same time. Like that can actually be really, really hard. Now, if you have a lot of weight to lose and you make some really healthy changes, you might be able to achieve that. You might actually rapidly lose weight just because you cleaned up your diet, you're moving your body every day, you're strength training. You might be able to actually do that. And that's really fun. That's kind of falls under the newbie gains category that we sometimes talk about. But if you're already lean and you're like, okay, I really want to put on 10 pounds of muscle, but I also want the scale to go down. That's not rational. And that's probably not going to happen. The way that you have to train, the way that you have to eat in order to put that muscle on is probably not going to be super synergistic with that scale number going down. However, you can take these things in a sequence, right? And that's why, to use the extreme, you see bodybuilders bulk and then you see them cut. You don't see them do that at the same time. Okay. So be realistic about that. And other than that, I just want to answer Libby's question. Do you have any more questions that I need to answer really fast? I don't want to leave.
One before we get there. So you said don't double train. I forget what you called it. Do 2 workouts in one day.
Double days. Double days. I'm not a huge fan. No.
But the way you wrote that out looks like there's double days.
This out? No. Yes. Okay. Because you're looking at the math.
That's right.
3
That's
plus
right.
3. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Okay. You are so right. So here's an example. Okay. So I do my 3 strength sessions. I have my 3 runs. I have 1 Metcon and 1 injury prevention. Okay. Number 1, injury prevention session. I wouldn't count that. It would be like counting yoga as a workout or Pilates as a workout. I don't really count that. You could tack that on to a running day. You could tack that on to a lifting day. It's so low stress that I wouldn't count that. So that's a good question. So that gets rid of 1. And if you do the math here, I'm still up to 7, and you're absolutely right about that. I take Sunday off always. I do lift, and I told you about this is why I hate Mondays so much. I do a heavy strength training session on Monday, and then I do my VO2 or my what do you call it? They're so terrible. Threshold run after that. Not ideal at all.
So, but that is a double day.
That is
what you consider a double day, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, technically, a double day is usually where you do a whole
1
session
in the morning, 1 at
and you
night.
come back. But it is me basically doing 2 things together that ideally I would so much rather do 1. But I've just weighed, okay, the pros of me doing this so that because it's the only time I can get it in. I just don't have, and I'm not going back to the gym at night when I'm with my kids. I'm just not. So I'm already there, and I've tried it the other way around, running really hard. But if any of you have any experience with this, try running really, really hard and then doing the heaviest squat that you can do. It won't, like, you can't. So I'd rather run tired than lift tired. So that's why I lift first. Especially if you're going to have any kind of Olympic, like explosive power type stuff, you really want to put those at the front of your workout, no matter what's coming for you later. So you're absolutely right. It's not ideal, but it's still minimum effective dose of all the boxes I want to check. So I've crammed them together, and I get away with it because it's Monday and it's only 1 day that I do that. But that's a great question.
Okay. Okay. Now to Libby's question.
Libby's question.
And then I was just thinking about our schedule. I don't know if we're going to be able to do a show for the next 3 weeks.
3 weeks. That's terrible.
We'll have to talk about that.
Well, but I thought we talked about recording early next week.
We'll talk about it.
Okay, we'll talk about it, guys.
It could be difficult for actually next 3 weeks.
We got to get one in. I got a really good email, and I need to ask her if I can read her email because she asked really good questions. And that's why I want to make the just about like how do you make change, like how really like practical in the trenches. How do I remember how to unfrost the meat? We have no healthy habits. Where do we start? I don't know how to do this. We want to have kids now. That's don't have time. Yeah, it was a good email. So I did that. Okay.
All right, let's go on to my cousin.
So
my cousin
Libby Halverson, I hope you're doing great. So she texted me and basically asked, is there, in your opinion, a like recommended step count for people, and kind of in the context of the fact that she's a busy mom, and she is adorable little children, and a lot of moms are busy moms, and the standard, and I think it's a really good question, that's why I said I'll answer it on the show. The standard advice for steps from, I believe it's the CDC, who what we think about the CDC, but it's 10,000 steps a day.
Not the same anymore.
It's 10,000 steps a day. And I'm sure many of you listeners have heard that recommendation. Try to get 10,000 steps a day. And on its face, it's not a bad recommendation because the average American, so many of them are so sedentary. They just don't move, right? And that's why you get all those things like, okay, we'll just try to take the stairs instead of the elevator, or, park your car farther away from the store and walk in. And that's how you just get your steps in. And on the one hand, if that's all you're doing, and you're not living, and if that's your only goal and you're not already doing that, I don't think it's a bad recommendation. I think walking is underrated. It's relatively low stress. So you're not in that moderate stress no man's land that I don't like, where it is stressful, but it's not really getting you any particular training, stimulus. I like walking, but I have found that when you strap a step counter, a pedometer, whatever, I mean, there's all these gadgets now that will track your steps on a busy mom, she will hit 10,000 by lunchtime.
Wow.
Because they just don't sit down.
Yep.
They are on
washing
their
dishes,
feet,
picking up
running
babies,
around, doing,
yep.
and then, you know what I mean? And just to be clear, 10,000 steps. And again, that's the high end of the recommendation. Some people will say anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000, something like that. But that's about 5 miles. So if a mom is literally walking like 5 miles in her own house, why would we look at her and be like, well, if you're going to do anything to increase your health and fitness, you should just go walk more? I think that's insane. So if you're a busy mom who feels it, you feel the ache in your feet, the ache in your back because you are on your feet, walking around all the time, doing the dishes, picking up kids. Maybe part of it is you're walking to the park, you're playing at the park, you're doing this, you're doing that. You probably do not need to walk anymore. And I'm not saying if you're feeling great and you want to get out in the sunshine, there's a lot of value in getting in the sunshine. You know what I mean? For everything. So if you want to and you feel up to it and it's not hurting you, I think that's perfectly fine. You want to go on a hike with your family or whatever. But if you're like, okay, what is the bare minimum thing that I could add into my schedule? And you are an exhausted, super busy, super active mom in that you get a lot of steps in. I would not add that. I would add in like some basic strength. very core centric. If anything, again, this is another reason I created my ladies online strength training program so that they can work on low stress, functional strength movements with a big dose of core at the end of every single workout, at home or at the gym. This is a perfect example of it. I would get on that, and on the cardiovascular side, I would add sprints in. Okay, because that's what you're not getting. You don't need more steps. Does that make sense? Now, if you are 300 pounds sitting on a couch and you're a gamer and you work from home, you probably do need to get your steps in, like get up and move. But I just don't. So context is everything, which is why I don't like blanket advice. But for a mom who's already getting enough steps in, I would say strength that is very core centric. Whatever things you need to do in your life to spin stress down, be that sleeping more, getting more sunlight during the day, adjusting your thought life, going to bed on time, putting all of your carbohydrates at dinner, whatever you can do to bring stress down, because it is just by nature a very stressful time. It's not bad stress, but it is physiological stress. And then add some sprints in. And if you're not doing something like I'm doing, all these other crazy things, you could sprint several times a week. And again, that could just be you randomly getting on your bike throughout the day and going 30 seconds as hard as you can. Hop off. And actually, it's quite invigorating. It wakes you up. It gets your heart rate up, and then you're off. You know what I mean? So you could do a whole session, starting with like 5 or 6 sprints with that 2 to 3 minute rest in between, maybe work up to, like yesterday, I did 8 200s. For example, usually if I run 100s, I do 10, but you work up to that. You know what I mean? Or you can literally treat them like a trigger session and just sprint 5 times throughout the day, wherever you can. Great use of grabbing a rower or like an assault bike and keeping them at your house, especially for a busy season like that. So anyways, that's my advice to you, Libby.
It's good, baby.
I hope that helps. This was a long one, guys.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about our schedule, I guess, at date night tonight, a little bit about what our next couple of weeks. Because we got a little travel in there, and Grace agenda and stuff like that, so we got to talk about all that. We'll try to
get at least one in. We know 3 weeks is a long time, but it's a crazy next several weeks. So
next couple weeks.
We'll keep you guys posted, and hopefully be back soon.
Thank you guys for tuning in to WaterBreak. And if you want to download our app, go to Fight Laugh Feast, type Fight Laugh Feast in your app store, or Cross Politic. Those are the 2 keywords I think that really connect to downloading our app and everything. That's the best place to really get all our content and everything. So eventually we're going to actually start streaming live on our app too. So kind of a cool feature coming there too. Thank you for tuning in to WaterBreak, and we'll see you next week.
Sometime soon.
Stay tuned.
Bye.
In modern fitness culture, temporary aesthetic beauty often comes at the expense of the body, soul, and true long-term vitality. At Mount Athos Performance, we believe in more than just looking good. We're on a mission to fuel a holistic lifestyle of health. A lifestyle that prepares you for every moment, from work to recreation. Built on purity, sustainability, and the pursuit of excellence, our products support functional fitness for everyday resilience and longevity. Welcome to Mount Athos Performance.
The Bible appears more to whisper when it comes to sexual sin.
Are we going to keep bickering over secondary issues?
You asking me out on a date?
America has squandered her inheritance far too long. It's time she repents and returns home to her Father.